This is the ultimate LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga ranking video. In this video, we will be ranking the 36 main storyline levels, the 6 bonus levels, the 20 bounty hunter missions, the 12 arcade levels, the 15 boss fights, and the 6 Minikit bonuses. That said, we will be starting with the story mode levels, so enjoy. Number 36 is Episode 2, Chapter 5, Gunship Cavalry. Horrible level. This one is not fun at all. I'm sure if you've played the Complete Saga, you will know that. The entire level revolves around these towing of bombs, and the bomb towing mechanics are incredibly clunky. The bombs never seem to go where you want them to go. If they hit anything whilst being transported, they will explode, and you have to go back and pick up another one and tow it around. The ending section of the level revolves entirely around this mechanic. There's one of the droid command ships, and your goal is to prevent it from going into space. To accomplish this, you need to use the towing mechanic to destroy some generators that have shields over them. You need to do this a total of 4 times, which can get quite repetitive fairly quickly. All in all, the Gunship Cavalry is just a very annoying level. Now this next one might come as a little bit of a shock to some of you, however I'm going to put Episode 4, Chapter 2, Through the Jedland Wastes, and number 35 on this list. This is an insanely long level. I believe in my LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga playthrough, this took me around half an hour, 35 minutes, which that was including editing, so horrible level this one. It's very long and extremely boring. You just play as Obi-Wan and Luke, and you go through the Jedland Wastes. You then go into a sandcrawler. You then go outside of a sandcrawler. You then have to do some puzzles where you have to make the quicksand dry up, and then you end the level. And that is quite literally it. There's also a massive bug, where there is a level reset door, just in the middle of the top of the sandcrawler, where if you go through it, it will reset your character to the start of the level. Which, I mean, just, yeah, why is this still here? Episode 1, Chapter 4 is the pod racing level. Horrible level. I'm sure a lot of us who played the game when we were younger can relate to the annoyances of this level, the frustrations. The overall objective is incredibly clear, but at the same time it's not clear. You have to overtake Sebulba, which you can only actually do in the final lap. The game won't let you overtake him if you're on lap 1 or 2, so fairly confusing and annoying level. That concludes D tier. Now moving on to C tier, which are levels that I find either boring or uninteresting. Starting off C tier, in at number 33 on our list, is Falcon Flight, and this revolves around the asteroid fields and the star destroyers. Mostly you're just destroying TIE fighters, and then star destroyers, and then asteroids using torpedoes. So, really not too interesting if I'm honest. In at 32 is Episode 6, Chapter 3, Speeder Showdown. This is a level that is split into multiple different segments, with the speeder bike chase between Luke and Leia connecting them. The whole main idea of the first segment of the level is that there is a gate that is protected by 4 beacons that you have to destroy using ATSTs. In order for the ATSTs to spawn, you have to get on the speeders and destroy some scout troopers. Now this part takes a while, as these scout troopers don't just die in one hit, you have to shoot them multiple times. Once you've defeated the specified number of scout troopers, you will stop and get off the speeders. You'll then have to build an ATST, shoot the beacon, get back on the speeders, do the entire speeder bike chase again with more scout troopers, get off again, build an ATST, shoot the beacon, and repeat that 4 times for the gate to lower. When you're on the speeders, it can be a bit confusing, as the game will automatically stop you once you've destroyed the scout troopers. However, the area you go across on the speeders is the actual level itself, and you keep going past the beacons, and I remember finding that very confusing, as all of the areas of the beacons look basically identical. That said, once you've loaded the gate, you then get to fight an AT-AT, and actually pilot it, which is quite cool. However, overall I think this level is quite annoying and repetitive. In at 31 is Episode 3, Chapter 5, Ruin of the Jedi. This level I don't enjoy, simply because it's just kind of boring, in my opinion. You play as Obi-Wan and Yoda, and you have to just go for the Jedi Temple, which there isn't really a whole lot there. You get to see the disguised clones though, which is quite cool, from the deleted Episode 3 scenes, but other than that, it's not too special. You've got some platforming at the end, and you get to see the hologram of Anakin being Palpatine's apprentice, but yeah, that's it basically. In at 30 is Bounty Hunter Pursuit. This is a very long vehicle level, which starts off with you chasing Zam Wessel around. You'll then eventually come to the purple electric power couplings that Obi-Wan and Anakin go through, where you'll be met with some torpedoes that you have to shoot at some things. I don't actually know what these are. Either way, you have to destroy them to progress the level. You end up getting in these small enclosed areas a few times, and then there's a simple boss fight at the end of the level, which isn't too difficult. It's just kind of, you fly around and shoot Zam Wessel. In at 29 is Episode 6, Chapter 1, Jabba's Palace. This is an extremely long level. It has got the Rancor boss fight at the end though, which is pretty cool. You play as Leia in the booster skies, where you have to keep picking up the bounty hunter helmet. There's a helmet dispenser in some areas, where you have to obviously use that to become boost to activate bounty hunter panels. This can get slightly irritating, honestly, because the Gamorrean guards keep hitting you, and if they hit you while you're in the animation of putting the helmet on, it will just knock the helmet off you, and then you have to go and pull the lever again. So that's something to be careful of. Adding on to that, you've got a load of going around in Jabba's palace, and like I said earlier, the Vanguard boss fight, which is honestly quite cool. You have to dispense some Gamorreans and sacrifice them to the Vanguard, which will then make him sit and eat them. And whilst he's eating them, you can then pull some rocks down to damage him. You do this twice, and then he'll walk underneath the actual big door, and you crush him using it to end the level. In at 28 is Episode 4, Chapter 5, Death Star Escape. The first part of this level is a puzzle section where you have to swing across a gap to allow a speeder to come out of the floor, to then go over the coloured lights on the floor to release a bridge that you have to get up to by pushing a block into a block, and then using a winder to push the block to make it go upwards, to then get a Stormtrooper helmet, to then access a panel to go through a door. And as a child, I found this part really annoying and confusing. You've also got a bit later on in the level, a large room full of Stormtroopers where you have to build a door. The issue of this is that if you get shot whilst building the door, you stop building and have to restart building, which just takes a long time. And then you've got the ending part where you have to free the Millennium Falcon from captivity, which involves doing a couple of different puzzles, playing as C-3PO and R2, and driving into one of those yellow, weird cargo vehicle things around. So that rounds out C tier. Now moving on to B tier, which are levels that I don't really mind playing. They're not levels I dislike, however they're not levels I get super excited to play either. They're just kind of levels that are there. Starting with number 27 on our list, Episode 5, Chapter 4, Dagobah. This is the level where Luke is getting his training from Yoda. This is also where R2-D2 can go underwater, and you have his little periscope eye come up out of the surface, which is actually not used in any other level. So, interesting mechanic, unique mechanic. Same with Yoda being able to ride on Luke holding onto his backpack. That's also exclusive to this level. Mechanics aside though, you've got the main area with the swamp, and you've also got the cave where you have to fight Darth Vader, which is a pretty short boss fight, but at the same time, a cool idea, actually having to fight Darth Vader to show the vision. You've got a couple of challenges using the Force, and the differences between Luke and Yoda being able to use the Force. Then you've got the part at the end with the X-Wing. Coming in at 26 is Episode 1, Chapter 5, Retake Feed. Is a lengthy level. You get Padme and Anakin Skywalker boy, young Anakin. Once again, nothing too special I don't think, in my opinion. It's just kind of a level that's there. In at 25 is Episode 4, Chapter 4, Rescue the Princess. This is the level where you play as Luke and Han Solo in Stormtrooper disguise, and you have to run around the Death Star to find Princess Leia. It's a medium-sized level. I've got a quarter of an hour it took me, and there isn't really a whole lot to it, if I'm honest. In at 24 is Episode 5 Chapter 1 is a vehicle level, and it is the Battle of Hoth. Fairly lengthy vehicle level, where you've got to attach the tow cables around the legs of the AT-ATs. The level also utilises the towing mechanic from Gunship Cavalry, which just is annoying. This time you have to carefully tow the bombs along some fairly thin platforms, and obviously if you miss, the bomb will explode, meaning you have to go back and get another one, which isn't fun at all. The final section is a fairly ginormous battle involving AT-ATs, AT-STs and probe droids, and it's just destroying a specified amount of each of them. In at 23 is Episode 5, Chapter 6, Betrayal over Bespin. This one is another fairly lengthy level, quite long, and you have a Boba Fett boss fight where he actually runs away on 1 HP, and you never finish the boss fight because he escapes in Slave 1 carrying Han Solo and Carbonite. After that, however, you just got the rest of the level where you traverse around Cloud City. You have to build C-3PO and fix him. You then have to walk around more corridors, use R2 a bit, go outside, get back inside, pull some levers, and then you have to find a fight with the Millennium Falcon, where you just have to sit there and shoot some Stormtroopers for a while, and then the ramp will open and you escape and end the level. Honestly, not too exciting. It's a fairly boring level, just a lot of walking around. In at 22 is Episode 4, Chapter 3, Mos Eisley. It's a nice level. It's got a lot of character and personality to it because you're going through Mos Eisley. You've got the Luke's land speed at the start, which is actually needed to get a Minikit. You have to drive it through a door in free play. As for story mode, however, you play as Obi-Wan, Luke, C-3PO, R2, and then you get Han Solo and Chewbacca at the end. You get to go in the cantina, you got the cantina music, and then you've got the Imperial Spy boss fight, which is in the docking bay of the Millennium Falcon. Although the Stormtroopers will fall down, and you shoot them, and then you shoot the Imperial Spy. You've also got the G-Back, which I really enjoy riding, because you can skip most of the level if you Without the G-back, you can just jump over part of the wall, which will stop you having to wear a stormtrooper helmet, go up an elevator, and a few other things. In at 21 is Episode 1, Chapter 3, Escape from Naboo. This once again is a fairly generic level. Nothing too special here. You play as Queen Amidala and Captain Panaka, and you have to reunite with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and fight your way out of feed to escape Naboo. Once again, not really too special here, just kind of a level that exists. In at 20 is Episode 6, Chapter 4, is the Battle of Endor. This is quite a nice level, it's kind of long, but one I actually enjoy. You start off in the Ewok village, and you have to make your way down to the surface of Endor, down past all the trees. Once you're down on the surface, you have to do a couple of puzzles involving R2 and C-3PO, and choosing the correct characters to be able to open 2 gates, so you kind of have to alternate between 3PO and R2. Once the gates open, you then get to use a catapult, an Ewok catapult, to destroy a gate, to then finally get into the bunker. Once you're in the bunker, you've got a couple of puzzles to do, to then be able to actually plant the bombs and end the level. Fairly interesting level, considering you get to start in the Ewok village, you then get to pilot an AT-ST, use a catapult, and then you have to do the things in the bunker. In at 19 is Episode 4, Chapter 1, Secret Plans. This is the level where you play as Princess Leia and Captain Antilles aboard the Tantive 4, trying to obviously get the Death Star plans down to Tatooine in R2-D2. This is a pretty good level. It's got several memes as well in it. It's got the Rebel Friend and the Beach Troopers at the end in the hot tub. That said, other than that, you've got the crane, which is quite fun. However, yeah, there isn't really a whole lot there than those things I've mentioned. So, in at 18 is Episode 6, Chapter 2, The Great Pit of Carcoon. This is once again a lengthy level, however I actually like it, I enjoy it, it's fun. It starts off with a Boba Fett boss fight, where you just have to deflect shots back at him. You then have to move some skiffs into position, jump over them, do some more jumps, enter inside of Jabba's sail barge. Some Gamorreans will be there. You build a disco panel, and they will start dancing. They will use their axes as guitars, which is pretty funny. Then you go up to the main deck, and have to do some small challenges to push some ginormous targets into position. And when I say ginormous, these ones are absolutely massive, these targets. To then go up to the actual cannon, shoot the cannon, and finish the level. There's something satisfying about using the cannon to shoot the targets. I don't know what it is, but the cannon just feels really good to use. So I'll put this level in B tier, because it's a long level, but one I actually quite like. In at 17 is Episode 3, Chapter 4, Defense of Kashyyyk. This is a fairly lengthy level, it's quite long. You play as Yoda and Chewbacca, and it's also when Order 66 happens. So you're fighting both clones and droids, which is pretty interesting. But as for interesting, that is about it. Because you're playing as Yoda, you're basically forced to have your lightsaber out, because Yoda is incredibly slow without it. There's this fairly irritating section in the middle, where the droids and the clones are coming up the beach towards you, and you have to lower a gate to get to the next area. Once you've got past the gate, however, the rest of the level is fairly simple. You've got an area with falling droids while they fall out of the sky. You can just avoid them by walking past them. You've got an area with an AT-RT, some boulders, and then you've got the final area with Yoda's pod. In at 16 is Episode 4, Chapter 6, Rebel Attack. This is the trench run, where you blow up the Death Star. Fairly nice level. You've got some shooting of TIE fighters to do at the start and blowing up some gates to actually get into the trench before you actually blow up the Death Star itself using a torpedo. Not too special though, sadly, even though it's a fun level. In at 15 is Episode 6, Chapter 6, Into the Death Star. This level involves blowing up the second Death Star. The level starts out in space, where you have to use torpedoes to destroy Star Destroyers. Once they're all taken care of, then you go into the second Death Star and see all of the unfinished sections. You then enter the reactor room, where you have to blow it up using torpedoes, and you then have a section after that where you have to escape it, and you see fire behind you and everything being blown up, and you simply fly to the Death Star too. Quite interesting, and for a vehicle level, not bad at all. In at 14 is Episode 5, Chapter 2, Echo Base. This is a very nice level, very atmospheric, and I like the music. You start off in Echo Base having to build some heating to melt the ice covering the doors. After melting the ice in front of the doors, you then come to a section where you have to use a turret to destroy a gate. You then have to send a train-like object to explode the door to get C-3PO. Once you've gotten C-3PO, the next area is all about him. You need to push some blocks into some specific sections on the floor to make some fans work. Once the fans are working, you put C-3PO on top of the fans. He will get launched into the air, so you can then put him on the top of a vehicle. The point of doing this is to allow him to get to an area that he can't actually normally get to, because C-3PO can't jump, so you have to put him on the vehicle, use the vehicle to push him onto an area to unlock a door to progress the level. Where you've then got a slide, which is actually quite fun. You've got a sliding challenge where you go down the slide and have to hit some of the red buttons to turn them green to progress the level. And finally you end up in the hangar, where you have to, obviously, through the Millennium Falcon again to escape Echo Base. In at 13 is Episode 2, Chapter 3, Droid Factory. This level is of average length, where you play with Anakin and Padme, and you have to dodge all of the droid machines trying to kill you and crush you. I like the atmosphere of the level, where you've got the generations at the start all hiding away, trying to surprise you and ambush you, using all the droid machines, and some big bits of lava towards the end of the level. Wouldn't really say it's anything too special though. In Act 12 is Episode 1, Chapter 2, Invasion of Naboo, the level where you unlock Jar Jar Binks, who can double jump, which is quite cool. When you spawn in, you've also got a load of droids and Gungans running around back and forth, and you've got an MT2 that's destroyed, which you have to blow up to progress the level. That's this kind of swamp area with some nice water effects. On to A tier now. A tier levels are levels that I really enjoy playing, and every time I go and replay the game, I am likely to pick one of these levels to go and replay. Starting off A tier is Episode 2, Chapter 4, Jedi Battle. This one to me has always been a really fun level because there's loads of droids that you can just kind of destroy, and if you run around using the Jedi Slam, I find that to be really satisfying. The actual objective is to rescue Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan. You play as Mace Windu, and you've also got a Jango Fett boss fight at the end, where, similar to the last one, you just have to block his shots, and that is about it. Fun level though, I like it. In at 10 is Episode 2, Chapter 2, Discovery on Kamino. I've always thought Kamino in Star Wars games is always done really well. You've got the rain and the storm and all the atmosphere. I always find that in games they do a really good job capturing that. Either way, that's how you play as Obi-Wan Kenobi and R4, and you have to go around the halls of Kamino. You then get the cutscene where you see all of the clones getting ready to be shipped off into battle, and then you go into the room with Jango Fett and Boba, where you realise that Jango Fett is actually a bounty hunter. There's a small chase segment where you follow him around Kamino for a bit, and then you have a boss fight at the end where you have to deflect his shots back at him using a lightsaber. Overall, a really enjoyable level. I like it a lot. In Act 9 is Episode 2, Chapter 6, Count Dooku. You get to play as Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda. There's a small platforming section at the start where you have to press some buttons and pull some levers to actually get into the part where you fight Count Dooku. As for the boss fight itself, Count Dooku will use his Force Lightning to zap one of the players. You will then have to switch to the second player to hit him in the back with your lightsaber. There's then a bit of forcing, similar to the Darth Maul boss fight where he will throw objects at you. You just have to force him away. And then the part with Yoda, where Yoda comes in, and it's just some use of the Jedi Slam ability to finish off Count Dooku. In Act 8 is Episode 3, Chapter 2, Chancellor in Peril, and it's the level where you rescue Palpatine. The level starts off with some just platforming and destroying droids, and then you get into another Count Dooku boss fight. This is similar to the last one, where he will use his lightning to zap one of the players, meaning you have to switch to the second one to hit him in the back. I remember as a child, for whatever reason, I just couldn't actually figure out how to overcome this. I got stuck on this constantly. The game didn't actually make it too clear, however, it's kind of confusing thinking about that now, considering I just finished the Episode 2 boss fight with Count Dooku, so I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking there as a 10-year-old. Either way, once you've rescued Palpatine and defeated Count Dooku, you've then got the elevator section, but the elevator will drop down and try and crush you, because you're obviously in the elevator shaft, which is pretty exhilarating, seeing the elevator and the fire behind it. And then you've got a simple section where you have to switch to R2-D2 to overcome some challenges, and then beat some Magna Guards, and then the level ends. In Act 7 is Episode 1, Chapter 1, Negotiations. This is the first level in the entire game, and you have to play it to unlock any level. I think it's a very nice level. It is obviously the first part of Episode 1, the first scene, where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon land on the droid control ship. It's a very nostalgic level, because like I said, it's the first level you play, and also because it's the dancing chairs at the start. There are these chairs at the start of the level where you can use the Force in them, and they will start dancing around and playing the Cantina song, which I think 99% of players will have done. The level in a way serves as a kind of tutorial, because you've got lightsabers and you've also got droid control panels that only droids can interact with, so it gets you familiar with some of the basic mechanics of the game. In Act 6 is Episode 3, Chapter 1, the Battle of Coruscant. This is a really fun vehicle level. I find it very satisfying because it's mostly on rails, so you're forced into going in the direction the game wants you to go, which may sound bad. However, if you just sit there and hold the fire button, it is insanely satisfying, seeing what this does just go up your counter. In Act 5 is Episode 5, Chapter 5, Cloud City Trap. This is the level where Luke and Darth Vader fight. This is a nice boss fight, split into multiple segments. You've got the first area in the carbon freezing chamber, where you have to use R2 to activate a panel to make the carbon freezing jets hit Darth Vader when he stands over them. You've then got to use a crane to get R2 across to a different area to activate a panel to activate a bridge so that Luke can cross. You've then got some platforming outside before returning inside for another fight with Darth Vader. Once again, similar mechanic, use R2 to activate some jets of steam to hit Vader and damage him. He will then run away and go into the viewport room, the room with the ginormous viewport out the back, where you have to play as Luke to use the Force to throw objects back at Vader. Works similar to the Darth Maul boss fight, honestly. You've got some stormtroopers there as well that you have to deflect the shots back at, and then you can fight Vader, and then he'll jump out the window. You've got some platforming, and then another simple just lightsaber fight, so obviously utilising the Jedi Slam attack to get that done quickly. Then you've got the cutscene where Vader pulls out the photo of Anakin and Padme and points to it, which is honestly quite nice storytelling, considering there's no dialogue spoken. And well, that concludes A tier. Moving on to S tier now, our final tier of the video. S tier levels are levels that I enjoy a lot, and the levels that I often find myself going back and replaying. There aren't many here, and they're all boss fights. However, I do find these levels really, really fun. Starting off with episode 3, chapter 3, General Grievous. This is the General Grievous boss fight level, and it is a very fun boss fight. You start on the massive platform as Obi-Wan and Cody, and you just have to keep hitting Grievous over and over again. He'll then try and run away and jump to some different higher ground, and every time you keep hitting him, he'll just go back down to the massive platform and repeat that a couple times. I like it though, it's a very fun boss fight. Next up is episode 6, chapter 5, Jedi Destiny, the level where you have to defeat Palpatine. This is an amazing level, I really, really like it. I like everything about this level. First of all, you get to play as Luke and Darth Vader. The game gives you Vader for free after completing the level. You've then got a Palpatine boss fight of multiple different sections, where he will run around the throne room of the Death Star, and he'll use lightning, and he'll electrocute some floor panels that you have to carefully move over and traverse to not get electrocuted yourself. He'll do this a couple of times before returning to the center and engaging you in lightsaber combat. The amount of HP he has, the amount of hearts he's got, I remember as a kid loading up the level before having to go to bed and just being in awe, almost in shock of how much health he has. Once you beat the level, you also get quite an emotional cutscene, where once again no words are spoken, because early LEGO games didn't have dialogue, they had mumbling. However, you can see the emotion on Luke and Vader's faces as Vader passes away, but I think TT did a good job in the cutscene, showing enough emotion and just making quite a sad moment without any dialogue being spoken. In Act 2 is Episode 1, Chapter 6, Darth Maul is the first boss fight in the game, and a very good one at that. The level is split into multiple different segments. You've got the first part of the bridge where there's some droids shooting at you, and you have to destroy the droids, then use the Force to throw objects back at Darth Maul. You do this 3 times, and then he will run away, and you can use the Force to build the bridge to chase after him. The second level is a simple chase segment, where you have to do some platforming to keep up with Maul and follow him. You've then got the large expansive area with the plasma beams that come down from the ceiling. There are 2 droid commanders at either end of the level that spawn droids from the ceiling, and you have to take out the commanders, the droids, and then 2 droidicas to progress the level. Then you've got the final area with the shafts that Darth Maul falls down. It's a fairly simple boss fight, just a few Jedi Slam attacks and doing something similar to the start with the Force, where you throw objects back at him and he will die. But a very fun boss fight nonetheless. And finally, my favourite level in the entire game is Episode 3, Chapter 6, Darth Vader. This is the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight. It starts off with some honestly quite challenging parkour, especially for playing as a friend who doesn't know the parkour that well, because as soon as you die, it will reset and you go back to the start. So you keep doing that until you eventually finish it. You've then got a small timed section where you have to prop up some pillars and move some pillars out of the way of the door to progress the level. You've then got some more platforming, and then you've got the best part of the entire level, which is the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight itself. Because if you're playing with a friend, you actually get to fight your friend, you fight the second player, and depending on who you're playing as in the story mode, you get a slightly different cutscene as well, which is really interesting and a unique idea. And that is it, all 36 levels ranked. I'll put the tier list on screen now so you can have a look at the entire thing. Moving on to bonus levels now. Number 6 is of course going to be Gunship Cavalry, Original. Now Gunship Cavalry Original is the original version of Gunship Cavalry from LEGO Star Wars the video game. This version features a lot of the same level theming as the Episode 2 version. You're still on a gunship, still in the canyons, and there's still lasers everywhere. However, the bomb throwing mechanic has been removed, which honestly you could argue is a good thing. However, in its place, instead, are lasers that are linked to an auto-scrolling section. Firstly, they limit your movement. If you go too far right, you'll get stuck with the screen that's currently moving, meaning you can't move anywhere. And if you don't go right enough, you'll get stuck with the left of the screen that will push you into obstacles such as lasers. This means that you kind of have to go in the middle of the auto-scroller. Not so fast you end up getting stuck with the front of the screen, unable to move, but also not too slow that you end up getting stuck with the back of the screen, getting pushed into things. The ending section of the level is also slightly different. Instead of throwing bombs to weak points on the Separatist control ship, you instead fly around it in a circle, and you just simply have to shoot it. There's a timer. However, from my experience playing, this timer didn't really seem to do a whole lot. I still ended the level with a fairly decent amount of time left, so it isn't too much of an issue. This level is ranked so low simply because the auto-scrolling section is so irritating. Coming in at number 5, we have Mos Espa Pod Race Original. Much like Gunship Cavalry, this is the original version of the pod racing level, from LEGO Star Wars the video game. Now this level has a few elements that have been taken out of the episode 1 version. Firstly, whenever you touch walls, you will take damage, you will lose health, which means that you have to stay in the middle of the canyon. Now this isn't actually too much of a problem, except when you're in the area with the Tusken Raiders. Because not only have you got the Tusken Raiders shooting at you, you also have boulders that fall down getting in your way, and losing a heart hitting the boulders and getting shot at by the Tusken Raiders can actually make this area quite difficult. Additionally, there's also a timer for some of the areas. Now this timer, unlike the one that we just looked at in Gunship Cavalry, is actually quite difficult, and it doesn't really leave a whole lot of room for error. You are usually only left with a few seconds left before you have to restart the area. The last section of the level, which is the larger flat area, has also changed slightly. There are now landmines everywhere. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Landmines in the floor that will blow up if you get too close to them. They're not really too much of an issue, as you can just stay clear of them, so they're not the worst thing ever. Coming in at number 4, we have Anakin's Flight. Now Anakin's Flight is based off of the section in episode 1, where Anakin goes up in the Naboo Starfighter to try and destroy the droid control ship. The first bit of the level is flying around the exterior, and when I say flying around it, I mean not literally. All you can do is just go in a circle around it. You have to use torpedoes to blow up specific marked areas. It's not really a problem if they give you torpedo dispensers, so it's just more of a case of not getting shot by the vulture droids. That will then open up a hatch that allows you to go inside, and this is where things get a little bit annoying. There are more marked torpedo areas that you have to destroy to open some doors. However, they don't give you a torpedo dispenser, you have to go and get them yourselves by destroying vehicles. And this is incredibly inconsistent. Sometimes you'll destroy a vulture droid and it won't drop a torpedo, and other times you'll destroy one and it will. It's fairly random, which just leads to a lot of frustration. It doesn't really help that you have to do this section about 3 times as well, with an increasing number of torpedoes needed. The last area of the level is much like episode 6, chapter 6, into the Death Star, where you have to fly around a central point. Once again, more torpedoes. This time you need to just shoot them at the central point. That will then trigger the second phase, where a shield will come up and spread outwards. Now this area reminds me of something that a lot of you UK viewers will recognise, the revolving doors in department stores. You know, the ones that either are really quick, way too slow, or broken and don't work. Those ones. The extended shields will spin around for a bit before retracting, allowing you to shoot at the middle bit. You just have to repeat this a couple times and that will end the level. This level doesn't really have a whole lot to it. I didn't really find it too enjoyable, because it was mainly just flying around in circles and waiting for vulture droids to drop torpedoes. Okay, next up, coming in at number 3, we have A New Hope. Now A New Hope is based on the opening of episode 4, however this level is played out from the Empire's perspective, which is quite cool. You get Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper as the 2 playable characters, and you have to go around the corridors of the Tantive 4. Now there are some interesting rooms in these corridors. You've got C-3PO trapped inside of a cage, where you have to do a small puzzle involving standing on buttons. You've got a weird centrifuge-like machine in the middle of a room, that when you use the force on it, it will spin up some fans, so you can collect studs. You've got a room where you have to use the force to spell out the word LEGO. And then you've got some panels that you have to use C-3PO to unlock. And then you finish a level when you find Leia putting the plans into R2-D2. Overall, fairly interesting level. I think the level being from the Empire's perspective is quite cool, and definitely quite unique. Coming in at number 2, we have LEGO City. LEGO City is one of the traditional LEGO game style bonus levels, where it's set in a small LEGO city with a green base plate as the floor, and a level goal of 1 million studs to finish the level. There are some nice parts in this level. You've got a load of houses that you can interact with, some of them you have to destroy, others you have to rebuild by destroying the floor. If you use your Jedi Slam attack on the floor nearby, it will start building the house, which is quite satisfying. You've got a couple of creatures and animals around, G-Back, Bantha, things like that. You've got a Wookiee catamaran, which you have to build. Now this one's quite interesting, because it involves using the G-Back to catapult yourself on top of a fire station tower to finish completing the catamaran. You've also got another Lego sign that you have to build, then there's a park with a slide and a roundabout. The slide is pretty cool to go down, as there's a load of studs you can collect, and you can make the roundabout spin by building a winder and pushing it, and then you just got a load of flower pots and fences and things you can destroy to get studs. Overall, just a very satisfying level. It's quite fun just to run around just attacking things and destroying things. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Newtown. Now Newtown is similar to LEGO City, however I personally just think it's a bit more interesting. Most of the buildings from LEGO City there, you've still got the play park, the houses, and the LEGO sign. However, you've also got some new additions too. You've got a fire truck, you've got a boat you can launch and push into water, you've got a basketball shooting basketball gun, which just shoots basketballs into a basketball hoop, you've got an electric power line with some blue studs on top of it, And then you've also got the church in the middle, where you can make the church bar play. Just in my opinion, I think that level is slightly more interesting, and there's just a bit more going on compared to Lego City. And yeah, that's it, all 6 bonus levels ranked. Next up, we've got the 20 bounty hunter missions. Okay, so coming in at number 20, we have Ben Kenobi. Now you have to find him in the Sandcrawler from episode 4, chapter 2. So we're already off to a great start. Now the Sandcrawler interior is annoying for a couple of reasons. Firstly, there are the Jawas. Now when you're in a bounty hunter mission, all of the original trilogy bounty hunters get added to your party. And some of these characters are droids. You've got IG-88 and Forlom. Now the issue with droids is that Jawas exist. And in Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga, the Jawas will walk towards droids and stun them using their zapper. And this is really annoying, because it means that if you're playing as a droid character, you can't move, you can't do anything, and when you've got the time limit for completing the level, being slowed down by Jawas really is not helpful. Now the second issue is actually where Ben Kenobi is hidden, because you go through the Sandcrawler, and you go through each room, but you never actually see him. Now when I was playing, I got to the end of the Sandcrawler, and lowered the ramp, and went outside, and he just wasn't there, which was confusing. But if we rewind, where do you guys think he's hidden? Because it's actually quite sneaky. He's hidden away on the right here, tucked all the way into a small alcove. Now you can't actually see this because the camera angle doesn't allow the camera to move that far. And this for me is one of the reasons this level is so annoying, because you've got all the hassle with all the Jawas, and then you also have the actual struggle of finding him. Maybe I'm being slightly too harsh, considering that I don't like the normal story mode version of this level. I think it's a very long level, and quite a boring level normally, but that is why this level is number 20 on our list. Coming in at number 19, we have Princess Leia. Now this takes place in episode 4, chapter 4, and you spawn halfway through the level, in the room with the winder. Now the reason this level is number 19 is because it doesn't really play any differently to the story mode level. In fact, to get to Princess Leia, you follow the story mode level. Same corridors, go up the lift, pull the levers, open the prison cell corridor, and you'll find Leia just opposite where she is in the story mode level. And that's about it. So it isn't really overly original, interesting, or challenging in any way. Coming in at number 18, we have Rebel Trooper. Now Rebel Trooper takes place on Kashyyyk, and I've decided to put this level at number 18 for exactly the same reason as the last level, because once again, you are basically just following the story mode path. Rebel Trooper is up in some trees, and this once again is somewhere you have to go in the story mode level, because one of the Wookiee warriors that's captured is up there. The only thing that makes this one slightly more interesting is the fact that you need to switch to Bobber and use his jetpack to fly over a gap. This is the only thing you have to do that deviates from the main storyline level, which I guess you could say is slightly more entertaining than having to pull some levers to open some doors that are opposite the end of the normal level, but only slightly. Coming in at number 17, we have R2-D2. Now finding R2 takes place in episode 4, chapter 1. Now this level doesn't really follow the main storyline at all. You actually end up going through a bounty hunter only door, and then walking down some corridors, and that is quite literally it. As soon as you enter the bounty hunter door, it points you directly towards where R2 is. You've then just got to simply go to the door, and he'll be behind it. So it's a fairly boring level, and fairly tame, and not a whole lot happens. So that's why it's number 17. Coming in at number 16, we have Jar Jar Binks. Now Jar Jar Binks takes place in episode 1, chapter 2. Now you spawn in just after the second room, when you're in the main swamp area, and if you are familiar with the level, you can most likely assume why Jar Jar will be, because there's an MTT that has had one of its guns replaced with silver Lego, meaning that you need to use a thermal detonator to destroy it. Once you've done that and gone inside, you will see Jar Jar standing there. Now the thing about this level for me is that it's very predictable, because there aren't really a whole lot of other hiding places that Jar Jar can be in this area. Now I suppose you've got the small cave, but I'm sure if he was there, you'd be able to see him instantly. I think for me the thing about bounty hunter missions is there needs to be a balance between not being too hard to find, not being too obvious like Jar Jar here, and also not just being the story mode of the level played with bounty hunters, like the last two levels we've looked at. In at number 15, we have Chewbacca. Now Chewbacca takes place in episode 4, chapter 3, towards the end of the level. Now the reason I put this one at number 15 is because of a very strange interaction that happens with a door, and I kind of got trolled a bit when I was trying to look for Chewbacca. Off to the right, when you get into the main courtyard-like area, is a cinema that's advertising LEGO Star Wars. Now I assumed that Chewbacca would be in there, because it would be a cool use of IG-88, who is able to access droid panels as well as bounty hunter panels. However, he wasn't, and upon going in the door, now the door does open, and you can walk in, However, you can't actually get into the cinema. You'll instead just be reset outside of the door, which is quite weird and quite interesting. Chewbacca is instead hidden behind a door that's glowing, as if to suggest you can use the Force on it. But you can't use the Force because you're bounty hunters, and instead you just shoot the door and it explodes. Which is honestly quite crazy and chaotic. Coming in at number 14, we have C-3PO. Now you have to find C-3PO in Bespin. Now obviously being Bespin, and being replaced by 3PO gets destroyed, I went into this level, assuming that the way you would get him is by rebuilding him. I thought that would be quite a cool way of doing it, having to go and find the Ognok workshop, and then physically rebuilding 3PO. Which that took a long time, which led to me running out of time and failing the mission. I then eventually got there, I went to rebuild 3PO, and then, well, nothing happened. So I guess I was wrong there. Turns out the actual way to find him is by going into a lift and using a bounty hunter panel, which will then take you up to the roof of Bespin, where 3PO will be waiting for you. The reason this level is ranked where it is more likely me being bad at the game, rather than the actual mission itself being annoying, because once you know where you're going, and once you know where the lifts are, it's a fairly short mission. What I will add, however, is that 3PO's icon does not appear or light up until you've taken the lift upwards, meaning you don't actually know how close you are to him until you're literally right next to him, which can be a bit misleading. In at number 13, we have Lando Calrissian. Now just like C-3PO, you have to find Lando in Bespin, and you spawn in at a slightly later point compared to C-3PO. Now Lando is one of the ones where you just follow the story mode of the level. You just have to finish off the outside section, and then go inside, follow the corridor along, around the corner, and then you'll find Lando. What I like about this mission though, is actually the toxic gas mechanic, because the only way you can get through this is by playing as a droid character, and this is a very underused mechanic. It only appears in a couple of levels. It's in episode 3 chapter 2, towards the end, and it's also in episode 5 chapter 6. But yeah, just a niche mechanic that I quite like. Now coming in at number 12, we have Yoda. Now you have to find Yoda on Endor, in the Ewok village, and this is another case of me being really bad at the game, because I started following the story mode, and building some of the bridges. I then got completely stuck on the puzzle where you have to push the electric block around. I started for whatever reason trying to jump up to the levers, and then flying up to them using Bob's jetpack. What you're supposed to do is use a small character to go through a hatch, which I probably should have realised meant that we're not supposed to be going that way, given that we don't have any small bounty hunters. Now this actually meant that I ran out of time, and had to restart the level, and upon doing so, figured out that you have to go left instead of right, because I thought this was the normal level spawn, but no, it's not the normal level spawn, it's slightly later than the normal level spawn. That aside, once you actually see Yoda, you have to then get to him, which involves using Bob's jetpack to fly across the gap. This gap is actually fairly precise in the timings, and it took me a couple of tries, but once I got across, that ended the level. So my advice for this one is very simple. Do not go the incorrect way, it makes this one so much easier. In at number 11, we have Shakti. Now you have to look for Shakti outside of the Jedi Temple, and as soon as you spawn in, it's fairly obvious where she'll be. In fact, you can see her quite early on. She's standing up above the door. So all that you need to do is just walk to the right of the screen, blow up the Lego, take the grapple point onto the kind of plateau area, and then just jump up to where she is, and then we'll end the level. It's quite a simple one, this one. Coming in at number 10, we have Luke Skywalker. Now you have to look for Luke in Mos Eisley, and he's actually in quite a cool place. He's standing on top of the ship, which is called the Dowager Queen. It's the massive tool that can be seen sticking out of the ground that's crashed into the floor. Now the way you actually get up there is by moving it by building a winder. You then push the winder, which will push the ship more upright, which will then knock off the pieces to build the grapple point. And then there'll be a grapple point that you have to use to actually get up to Luke, which is honestly quite cool. It's definitely more interesting than him just being in some random room somewhere. Coming in at number 9, we have Mace Windu. Now you have to look for Mace Windu towards the end of the Droid Factory level, episode 2, chapter 3. Now he's actually in a completely different room, meaning his icon will not appear until you actually enter that room that he's in. Which meant that, like quite a few of the ones on this list, I went completely the wrong way, and got to the end of the room, and realised he wasn't there. In fact, I went so far out of the way, I used Bobby's jetpack to fly into an area you're not even supposed to be able to get into in the bounty hunter mission, and realised that he wasn't there at all. He's actually in a bonus area, which you can see the entrance to fairly early on in the level. I just didn't walk in there for some reason. But anyway, once you're actually in there, you've got a load of lasers making a kind of maze, and you simply have to disable the correct lasers to get over to him. It's fairly simple once you actually get in there. It's just that it took me quite a while to figure out where Miss Windu was. Overall, the laser puzzle was quite cool, so that's why this one's number 9. Now coming in at number 8, we have Han Solo. Now you have to look for Han Solo in Echo Base, and he's fairly early on in this level. You spawn at the regular level spawn, and just have to walk forward down the corridor a bit until you find him. Now what I really like about this level is actually the way that you have to get to him, because he's tucked away in a small alcove fairly high up a wall, and what you have to do is build the cart that normally explodes the wall, make sure the cart just goes around the room in a circle, and then using Bobber specifically, jump on the cart, and then use his jetpack to fly it over to Han Solo. And to me, I just thought that was very cool and a very clever use of mechanics. In fact, when I was playing the level myself, I actually walked out of the room he was in, because I didn't even realise there was an alcove in the wall. But yeah, overall just a fun one. Coming in at number 7, we have Admiral Akbar. Now just like Han Solo, you have to find Admiral Akbar in Echo Base. Well, this one's interesting, because you end up going into a bonus room that has a score ×2 multiplier, which there are a few of these in the game, but not many. That isn't actually relevant to the mission at all, but it's just something that I found quite interesting. Anyway, Admiral Akbar himself is in a back tank, and you have to drain it to actually be able to finish the mission. Now what I like about this mission is not only him being in the back tank is quite cool, and the location is cool. The room reminds me a lot of Star Wars Battlefront 2015, because there are loads of back tanks in that game, and I'm very nostalgic for that game. So yeah. Not really sure if this mission is ranked as high because of the actual mission, or just because of Battlefront 2015. Coming in at number 6, we have Qui-Gon Jinn. Now Qui-Gon Jinn takes place in Episode 1 Chapter 1, Negotiations, and he really isn't difficult at all to find. I'm assuming much like the actual level in the game, this mission also serves as a kind of tutorial on what bounty hunter missions are and how they work, because he is quite literally just down the corridor on the left, so he's really easy to find and really quick to find. However, the level itself does quite a good job of explaining what bounty hunter missions are, how the icon system works, where it lights up the closer you are to the character, and also reminds you that the droid bounty hunters can use droid panels. So yeah, really simple mission, but really good tutorial for bounty hunter missions in general. Okay, so coming in at number 5, we have Luminara. Now finding Luminara is incredibly easy and incredibly quick. She's just locked up behind the door off to the right, and you have to use a bounty hunter character to unlock her, which luckily for us, we have quite a few of. Now what I like about this one is that situationally it's just quite funny, because all of the Jedi are invading the arena, and Luminara has somehow got herself trapped behind a door. Also quite a good use of level scenery, because having her literally trapped behind a locked door makes sense. So yeah, overall just quite a funny one, this one. Coming in at number 4, we have Commander Cody. Now you have to find Commander Cody in Episode 3 Chapter 3, which is actually where you have the General Grievous boss fight. Now he's fairly easy to find, just a straightforward jump across some platforms to destroy a massive wall to then jump up into an alcove where he actually is. I just like this one because I like the overall level that it's in. I think the Grievous boss fight is quite cool, even though you don't actually do it in the bounty hunter mission. Although now that I think about it, maybe it would have been more interesting if Cody was in the building at the top on the bridge. You can go in the building where Palpatine speaks to Grievous in the film. I feel like that could have been quite a cool location to put him. But anyway, yeah, it's a nice simple one, in a level that I really like. Coming in at number 3, we have Kit Fisto. Now Kit Fisto is incredibly easy to find. I think out of every mission, you can find him in the shortest time, because as soon as you spawn, his icon is basically fully lit up already. Once again, if you know anything about this level, you can guess exactly where he'll be, because he is in the same place as a Minikit, in the regular version of the level. Coming in at number 2, we have Queen Amidala. Now finding Queen Amidala is also relatively quick, like the last few we've looked at. However, what I like about this one specifically is that you have to use Bobber to actually get across to where she is. If you try and use anyone else, you won't actually be able to find her. If you try going below her on the floor, you won't be able to get to her. You have to use Bobber specifically to fly across to a balcony and then across to where she actually is. Which I just thought having an entire mission based around him specifically was quite cool. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Ki-Adi-Mundi. Now you have to look for Ki-Adi-Mundi in Episode 3 Chapter 2. And what I like about this one is just the amount of different times the game throws you off. Because logically you'd think at first that he would be inside one of the lifts. So you go ahead and use the droid characters to unlock them, and he just isn't there. So you then go up inside of the main ventilation area and look for him. And where he is in the most irrelevant location ever. He is so far left. It is insane. And I just found that incredibly funny. It's just Lego Coyadimundi with his molded long head that doesn't actually exist as an actual Lego piece. The official Lego Coyadimundi uses 2 pieces instead of just this long Lego head that they use in the games. All the way off to the left, hidden behind some beams. Yeah, I just found that funny. And well, yeah, that is it. All of the Bounty Hunter missions ranked, all 20 of them. Okay, next up we've got arcade levels. Coming in at number 12, we have Dagobah. Now Dagobah is a series of small islands set in the middle of the swamp. And the way you traverse the islands is either by using the grapple points or by standing on buttons to extend bridges. That's a fairly small level, and it's incredibly dark and kind of dull and depressing. Which is accurate to how Dagobah is. But there isn't really a whole lot you can do there. If you fall in the swamp you will die, unless you're playing as an astromech droid, which I mean that's quite cool, honestly. That feature only exists in Dagobah, the astromech droid periscope. But if we exclude the bridges, there isn't really a whole lot going on here. There isn't anything to build, anything to interact with, it's just the buttons for the bridges. Coming in at number 11, we have Mos Eisley. Now immediately you'll notice the camera angle is completely different to anything else in this game. You get more of a bird's eye view looking downwards, which is unique, I'll say that. However, Mos Eisley for the most part is kind of like a maze. Everything looks exactly the same. There isn't really a whole lot of variation. You've got some doors that open. And you've got the occasional moisture evaporator around. But other than that, there isn't really a whole lot going on. Everything looks the same, and this level is incredibly boring. However, the reason it's slightly higher than Dagobah is because there's nowhere to fall off, so you can't accidentally die. In at number 10, we have Kashyyyk. Now Kashyyyk is very similar to the opening of episode 3's level, Defense on Kashyyyk. You start in the trees, and the platforms look basically identical to the ones from that level. There aren't really too many places to go. You just kind of wander around the circular platforms. You've got one grapple point that you can go up to, and you've also got a massive tree trunk that you can wander around. As well as a bridge that is also from the episode 3 level. It's one of the ones where you have to build it using the force and then use the force again to actually activate it. The bridge will lower, and when you try and walk over it, nothing really happens. You just kind of get flung back up into the air, and you can't do anything. You can't go anywhere. It's kind of weird. In at number 9, we have Bespin. Now Bespin has a really cool atmosphere. You're outside and it's at night, and this is fairly similar to the ending of episode 5, chapter 5, Shroud City Trap, where you're near the weather vane, which I think is quite cool. You've also got the ambient wind sound effects, which once again just kind of add to the atmosphere, and you can hear all of the wind going around. As for the actual level, it's fairly similar to the other ones. You've got some platforms, some buttons to extend bridges, and then you've also got these massive doors that you can't really do anything with. You go inside of them and then nothing happens, and you can see the camera kind of tries to pan over to where you are, behind the door. But there isn't really anything in there, so I'm not entirely sure what they're doing. But overall, fairly standard level for arcade, it seems like. But I just think the atmosphere is really cool, all the ambient sound effects definitely add to it. In at number 8, we have Hoth. Now Hoth, once again, just like Bespin, has some really good atmosphere. On the floor there's ice, so whenever you walk around, you'll slide around, which is definitely interesting. You've got a couple of grapple points, lots of trees that are incredibly incorrectly scaled. The actual Lego tree piece they use is not that big, which I think is honestly quite funny. It's a cool piece, quite an old piece, but not accurate to the actual Lego piece whatsoever. You've got some platforms, some boxes to destroy, a platform that you need to use the force on to get up to a power up, which is quite cool. And probably my favourite part of the entire level is this dome. You kind of have to walk towards the camera, and then you end up going into the middle of a dome that acts like a lift, which is quite cool. If you remember episode 5, chapter 2, Echo Base, there's a similar dome there, which is in the bonus area. Kind of reminds me of that, which is quite cool. I don't know, it's just very smooth how you go kind of off camera and then up through the centre of the dome. It works very well. And yeah, just the cold atmosphere, it's nice, and you've got the music as well. And once again the oversized trees. Coming in at number 7, we have Endor. Now I like Endor because it has a lot of stuff in it. You've got bridges that in order to actually use you have to build them yourself, which is quite cool. You've then got more bridges that you have to pull levers to activate. You've got grapple points, and you've also got these small person hatches, which I don't think have been in any of the other levels we've looked at today on this list. Overall I just think it's a fun level because there's just a lot of stuff going on and loads of different interactive elements. As for the actual level aesthetics, you're in the Ewok village, and it's dusk, which is honestly quite nice. Reminds me of the end of episode 6. Coming at number 6, we have Feed Palace. Now Feed Palace to me is really cool aesthetically. You've got a lot of different types of architecture and gateways, and most of the gates actually open. You can walk through them. You've got a lot of massive courtyards and fountains, as well as some lifts that go up and down. And so there's a fairly amount of verticality in this level. You've also got these silver gates that you have to use bounty hunters to destroy. However, there isn't really anything behind them. There's just some alcoves and archways that you can walk through, but they don't really lead anywhere. Most of them are dead ends. Additionally, the overall layout of the level is quite different to some of the other ones. I've already mentioned the verticality, but the level overall has a lot more solid ground and areas you can walk around in, compared to some of the other levels that are more platform based with large gaps in between them and bridges separating them, which I definitely think is interesting. Feed is also really bright and sunny, which is quite uplifting compared to some of the darker levels such as Dagobah. In at number 5, we have Geonosis. Now what I like about Geonosis is that it's set inside of the droid factory. It's not outside anywhere, it's not in the arena, it's literally inside of the droid factory, which I think is a really cool setting. You've got a fair few different pathways you can take when traversing. You've got a fair few different pathways you can take when traversing the level. The bridges return with the buttons that you have to walk over to extend them. However, you've also got the addition of the burning pots of lava and Lego pieces that are in episode 2 chapter 3, Droid Factory. These make for an interesting obstacle as you have to jump onto them and then jump off. As you have to jump on them and then jump off of them as they're moving. However, when I was playing, they were quite laggy. You'll see here that the game you'll see in the clip here that the game just lags completely when I stand on them, which is quite weird. Other than that, you've also got the massive doors that lead to absolutely nowhere again, which seems to be a common theme. However, I'm guessing that for multiplayer, they're quite fun because you can kind of hide in them. Overall, it's just a cool setting. The Droid Factory is really cool, and you can hear all the mechanical noises in the background, as well as also being able to see some of the conveyor belts. If you go to the edge of the map and look downwards, you can see them down there, which I definitely think is pretty cool. Coming at number 4, we have Mustafar. Now Mustafar is incredibly interesting, because the entire floor is made out of lava, and the only playable area you've got to work with are platforms. Now these platforms actually require a fair amount of precision when jumping to, because once again you've got to consider the camera. Now the way the camera works in this game is that both players need to be on the screen at the same time. If they're not, the game will usually try and pull them together, which is really irritating, especially if you're doing a jumping section, as it will often move the characters away from where you're trying to jump to backwards over the pit that you just jumped over, and you'll usually end up falling into it, which is really irritating. If that doesn't work, or if one of the players gets too far off screen, the second player will literally just get teleported on top of them. Or in some cases, in some really extreme cases, one of the players will just straight up get disconnected, which will pause the game because you're in 2-player arcade and you have to have 2 players. And honestly, in my opinion, this is very irritating. Jumping around the side though, there isn't really a whole lot going on here. You've got some of the platforms from the episode 3 chapter 6 level, Darth Vader, reused, and there's a power up at the end of them. You've got a couple of areas with more permanent ground, with some barriers on them, but other than that, there isn't really a whole lot here. I just like it because the idea of having a load of platforms to jump around on is quite unique, and definitely makes it an interesting level, as well as the risk that if you fall in the lava you will die, which will obviously lose you a point if you're playing in the duel mode. Something just about all the fire and the lava, it's just really cool in my opinion. Coming in at number 3, we have Camino. Now Camino offers a lot of horizontal movement, with the trade-off is not much vertical movement at all. There aren't really too many places you can go up and down. The camera angle is also a bit weird, it's kind of far out, and reminds me almost of 2-dimensional games, in a way. Now I actually do not remember this map at all. I don't think I've ever seen this map before making this video, which shows you how little I played the 2-player arcade mode growing up. But anyway, as always, the atmosphere is really good, all of the water from the rain, all looks good. But to me, the very interesting thing is that there are these doors that are blocked by silver Lego pieces, meaning you need to shoot them and use bounty hunters to destroy them. And once you've destroyed them and opened the doors, you will notice very large replicas of Phase 1 2002 clone helmets. And I think the really cool bit is that the cutout for the visor where the face actually goes is there. Because the way the Lego piece works is it's kind of got a cutout, and you can see the black head underneath. It's not got a printed visor or anything. And if you look closely at the ones in the level, you'll notice that. You can see the transparent piece holding them up, which I think is really cool. Other than that, you just got a load of large platforms, and you can see that I had a bit of trouble with one of them. I was using Boba Fett. In fact, I was playing as Boba Fett twice for some reason. And the game just really wasn't cooperating me and spawning me in 2 places where the camera pulled me together, and I fell off the ledge. Twice as 2 different people. Which honestly is kind of annoying. But either way, just the clone heads make this really cool, and the fact that I've never seen this before is why it's so high up on the list. Coming at number 2, we have Utapau, which is the exact opposite of Camino. Utapau's got a lot of vertical movement, and I mean, honestly, there's a lot of horizontal movement too. It's a fairly big level. Now, Utapau is kind of set into the cliff face, which is quite cool. It's quite an interesting setting. You've got all of the bridges and all of the different kind of architecture that you see in episode 3, from the scenes where Obi-Wan is meeting with Tia and Medon, where he mentions that there are thousands of battle droids on the 10th level. The architecture is very spot on, and very similar to what you see there. So I think it's done a very good job of making it look like the planet. There's loads of grapple points and verticality, which, once again, the camera really doesn't make this work at all, because you'll see that a lot of the time I end up falling off of things, and just struggling to get around, which honestly is probably down to me playing as 2 people at once. It's really irritating using the arrow keys and WSD and the numpad, and I, J, K and L on the keyboard. Yeah, keyboard controls are kind of weird. You've got a few different ledges and a few different jumps you can do to get yourself up to power-ups, and like I said, you've got all the different bridges you can walk along. There's loads of barrels too you can destroy, but once again I just think Utapau is a really interesting location, especially the specific area they've chosen for it. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Senate. This is just cool, having the Senate as a playable area. I honestly think they should have probably replaced episode 3 chapter 5, Ruin of the Jedi. I think that if they had the Senate duel of Palpatine and Yoda in the actual Senate that they've got here, that would have made for a really fun boss fight. Or maybe they could have split the boss fight somehow in the Darth Vader one, where you're fighting Anakin. Although maybe not, because that's a really cool boss fight itself. I don't know, but I definitely think they should have been in the level, because it's such a unique location, and it looks really good. You've got loads of different pods that the senators sit in, you've got loads of different ones you can jump around to, and you can actually go up a fairly long way, and left and right a lot more than you think as well. But I just think the Senate is such a cool location. Obviously you've got, the Palpatine meme, where he states to Mace Windu and the Jedi that he is in fact the Senate, which is just kind of funny. Pretty cool meme. But anyway, yes, that will have to conclude my ranking for all of the arcade levels. Now you could definitely argue that doing this in single player was a horrible idea, and doing this in 2-player mode may have been a bit more balanced and fair, and that doing this with 2 players, 2 actual real people, may have been a bit more of a more balanced way to get good arguments for each level, and good reasoning behind each level and each choice on the list, because this mode is very clearly meant for 2 players. You have to have 2 players to even be allowed to go in the door to play it. And I had so many issues with the camera that I even, included the section where I explained how it works, and the perils of moving too far away on the screen. Next up, we've got quite a cool one. This is all 15 boss fights. Starting off at number 15, we have Zam Wesell. Now the Zam Wesell boss fight takes place at the end of episode 2 chapter 1, Bounty Hunter Pursuit. And the reason I've chosen to put this boss fight at number 15 is simply because it's very boring, in my opinion. There's not really a whole lot that happens. The level starts out with you chasing Zam Wesell around. There's a small green marker just over her head, showing what direction you should be going, and you essentially need to chase her around a bit. You'll then fly into these larger open areas that get walled off by electric barriers. Whilst in there, you need to shoot some turrets and use some torpedoes, and then eventually when you get to the end of the level, you'll get into the actual boss fight. Well, this boss fight really isn't anything special at all. It's the only vehicle boss fight in the list. It's the only vehicle boss fight in the game, for that matter. And all you need to do is simply just shoot Zam Wesell. She'll fly around a bit. But the boss fight really isn't long, it's not complicated. Nothing really happens. The fight isn't split up into multiple phases, there's no attack patterns. Literally nothing, it's just you fly around and shoot her, and then you finish the level. So it's really quite boring. Coming in at number 14, we have Boba Fett from Cloud City. Now this boss fight takes place at the start of episode 5 chapter 6, Betrayal over Bespin. Now upon spawning in, before the boss fight even starts, you have to chase Boba around a bit. He'll be standing on top of a staircase, which will then turn into a ramp before running away. To fix this, all you need to do is just pull a lever at the opposite end of the ramp, and it will turn it back into stairs so you can follow him. Once you follow him around a bit, you will actually get into the boss fight. Now this boss fight really isn't anything special at all. He'll just fly around and walk around a bit and start shooting you, until you eventually get him down to 1 heart, and he'll run away again. Just like before, you need to chase him. However, this time, he'll run away into a cutscene. And the cutscene shows him getting into Slave 1, and flying away. And that is the entire boss fight. The reason it's ranked at number 14 is because it's slightly more interesting than Zam Wesell. However, you never actually win. You don't defeat Boba, he just runs away. so it's kind of anticlimactic in that regard. Coming in at number 13, we have Boba Fett again, but this time from episode 6 chapter 2, the Great Pit of Carkoon. Now this fight is fairly similar to the previous one. Boba will fly around a bit, and then you just have to deflect some shots back at him and hit him, and then he'll die. So it really is a quick fight, and once again not really too interesting. It's just one of those types of boss fights that's just kind of there, partway through a level, and doesn't really do a whole lot. So yeah, overall once again, just fairly boring boss fight. Coming in at number 12, we have the Imperial Spy. Now the Imperial Spy is fought at the end of episode 4 chapter 3, Mos Eisley Spaceport. Now what separates this fight from the ones that we've looked at so far? It's not just run around and attack the boss, which is definitely nice and makes a bit of a change. Now the way this fight works is that the Imperial Spy will use his walkie-talkie to call in some stormtroopers. You'll then have to kill all the stormtroopers to make the Imperial Spy himself appear, and then you go and attack him. He'll then run behind some doors into cover. You'll then have to defeat some more stormtroopers, attack him again. He'll then run away again, call in even more stormtroopers, and then you simply have to repeat that a couple of times to eventually end the fight. Now for me, the thing I like about this fight is simply just the variation. The fact that you've got some stormtroopers to deal with, and the fact that the Imperial Spy is quite elusive. He'll run around and hide. In fact, when you get into the boss arena, you don't even know what's happening until you defeat some stormtroopers. He doesn't even show himself until you defeated the first wave. So you've got to get past that for the boss fight to even start. Also the fact that he changes elevation. He'll occasionally go up to a mezzanine platform, and he will occasionally go up to a mezzanine, and you have to get him down from there. Overall just a bit more interesting than Zam and Boba, because they were fairly standard, just run around and shoot them. I wouldn't say it's very challenging, but there's just a bit more going on with the different phases that make it a bit more enjoyable when compared to just press the attack button and shoot the boss, like with Sam and Boba. In at number 11, we have Jango Fett from Geonosis. Now the Jango Fett Geonosis boss fight happens right at the end of episode 2 chapter 4, Jedi Battle, and it's fairly similar to the Boba Fett boss fight, where he'll just fly around. There aren't really any phases, there isn't anything interesting that happens. The map's fairly big, and he does use most of it when flying around though. It's just slightly repetitive, and he's got a lot of HP as well. He has quite a few hearts for some reason. Taking into account the level he's in though, I mean I really like the level. I think Jedi Battle's a cool level. There's lots going on, lots of action, lots of droids, and you've obviously got to rescue Anakin and Padme and Obi-Wan. So when you combine it all together, honestly not too bad. However, the Jango boss fight really isn't anything too special. And it does take quite a while, because like I said, for some reason he's got a lot of HP. Breaking into the top 10 now, we have Darth Vader from the Vision Cave in episode 5. Now this boss fight takes place partway through episode 5 chapter 4, Dagobah. And it's from the scene where Luke fights the vision of Darth Vader. Now this boss fight is pretty cool, because Vader will keep disappearing and reappearing in different locations, as well as a couple of force puzzles. In terms of actually fighting Vader himself, it's just the standard lightsaber type fighting. Now this is actually our first lightsaber fight on the list, and I'll use this time now to explain about lightsaber fights in LEGO Star Wars Complete Saga, because they follow a fairly standard pattern. Now the combat system has a couple of different moves. You've got a regular lightsaber swing, you've got a Jedi Slam attack where you jump once and then attack, and it will lunge forwards. And then you've got a Jedi Slam attack where if you double tap the jump button and then attack, you will slam into the ground, facing downwards. And then there is also the lesser known unbreakable block attack. If you swing your lightsaber, you'll notice that occasionally you'll get a load of sparks on a different animation. That is actually intentional, and there's a slow rhythm to the way you swing your lightsaber, and if you consistently swing it at the same speed every single time, you will end up performing an attack that cannot be blocked, which is quite cool. Now the sad part about this combat system is that it isn't really too relevant when you can simply just double jump and then attack, and that will go through any block and instantly do damage to any boss. So you kind of don't need any of the other methods, which is quite sad, because I do think it's quite cool having a few different techniques for attacking, but they're kind of redundant when you can just do the Jedi Slam attack by double jumping. Anyway, that aside, Darth Vader will block things, and that is really about all he does himself. And then like I said earlier, you've got the bit where he'll teleport around. But yeah, not really a whole lot going on there in terms of lightsaber combat. Just the same as all of the other lightsaber fights in this game. Coming in at number 9, we have the Rancor from episode 6 chapter 1, Jabba's Palace. Now the Rancor boss fight is pretty cool, because it is a very large creature, and it's one of the two non-human like bosses in the game. The first one being Zam Wesell, which is a vehicle boss fight, and the second one being this Rancor, which is a creature boss fight. I mean, sure, you could argue General Grievous isn't a human, he's a cyborg. However, in terms of mechanics, his boss fight plays the same as any other lightsaber boss. That aside, the Rancor boss fight itself is pretty cool. And I remember as a kid really struggling with this one, because I always tried to crush a Rancor first time instantly, with the massive gate, like you see in episode 6. However, that isn't actually what you're supposed to do for the start of the fight. The gate only comes in at the very end. Throughout the level, there are these pipes that Gamorrean guards come out of, and you can pull a lever to seal them up and stop the guards from spawning. Now in the Rancor boss fight, you need to do the opposite of that. You need to use R2 or 3 to open them, to allow a Gamorrean guard to spawn. The Gamorrean guard will then run around for a bit and lure the Rancor over to some boxes. You then need to shoot the boxes, which will explode and cause the box to fall down, damaging the Rancor. You then need to repeat this process again for a second time. On the third time of spawning the Gamorrean guard, it will run over to the massive door, and then you and the second player need to pull the levers at the same time to cause the door to fall down and crush the Rancor. Overall, a pretty good boss fight, and the Rancor being the size that he is makes it very interesting, because whenever he walks around, the screen also shakes a lot, which is quite cool, adds to the tension. The only downside is that the rest of the level to get to the boss fight is quite long and fairly repetitive. You mainly just walk in a straight line through lots of different rooms. You've got a few things you've got outside with the gate. You've got the Gamorrean guards spawning. You've got a room where the Gamorrean guards start using their axes, their air guitars, with some music playing, which is quite funny. You've got to use Princess Leia's bush to open bounty hunter panels. However, outside of the boss fight, I really don't find the level that enjoyable. It's quite long as well. Now coming in at number 8, we have Count Dooku. This is actually the second Count Dooku boss fight in the game, from episode 3 chapter 2, Chancellor in Peril. This is also the last time you face him, because this is the level where he dies. As far as the actual boss fight goes, it's fairly standard for lightsaber combat. He'll start attacking you, you can easily damage him by using the Jedi Slam attack. He'll jump around a bit and move to a mezzanine occasionally, where you have to fight some super battle droids, which is quite cool. They're not really too hard to defeat, but they definitely add something else to the boss fight. Additionally, Count Dooku will also use his Force Lightning to stun player 1. You will then have to switch to player 2 to attack him in the back, which will then release player 1, and then Count Dooku will run away somewhere, and you have to chase him and keep dealing damage that way. Now as a kid, much like the Rancor boss fight, I simply couldn't understand this bit, which when you think about it logically doesn't make any sense, given that he also uses this exact move in the first Count Dooku boss fight from episode 2. So I'm not really sure what happened there with 10-year-old me. And the rest of the level after the boss fight is also quite enjoyable, because you travel through the invisible hand, you've got the lift that falls on you. You've then got the really obscure smoke mechanic that R2-D2 can go through, and then you've got to fight Grievous' Magna Guards at the end of the level, which is quite cool. So overall a fairly solid level, and a fairly decent boss fight. It is quite short though, which might be the only issue. In at number 7, we have Jango Fett from Kamino. This is actually the first time in the game that you fight Jango Fett, from episode 2 chapter 2, Discovery on Kamino. This fight happens at the very end of the level, and Jango Fett himself works exactly the same as he does in the Geonosis boss fight we took a look at earlier. He'll fly around, he'll shoot rockets, he'll occasionally land and just shoot you normally. However, what makes this fight so interesting, and in my opinion better than the Geonosis one, is the addition of Boba in Slave 1 shooting at you. Now Slave 1 shoots for quite a while before stopping, and the shots that it shoots are quite big, so they add an additional obstacle for you to avoid. You can switch to R4 and activate some turrets to shoot at Slave 1, which will get it to fly away slightly and stop shooting for a bit. However, this isn't mandatory, and you don't actually have to do this to win the fight, it's just something you can do if you want to. So in that regard, I guess it kind of makes Slave 1 redundant, as you can just ignore it for most of the fight, as you can complete the fight without interacting with Slave 1. So I guess maybe something they could have done differently is made it so you have to get Slave 1 to stop shooting before you can attack Jango. That would have made Slave 1 feel a bit more part of the fight. As the way the fight is set up, Slave 1 is more of just an obstacle you have to avoid sometimes. Other than that, the rest of the level, Discovery on Kamino, is quite cool. Because if you've watched me for quite a while, you know that I really like Kamino as a planet, and I think Kamino in video games is portrayed very well, and the atmosphere is always on point. You mainly run around the halls of Kamino, until you meet Jango Fett for the first time, who will then run away and reveal that, oh, he's a bounty hunter, he's bad, and you have to chase him through some corridors. He'll also put down a load of mines that you have to avoid that will explode a bridge, creating a small parkour section, before running into some more corridors where you have to face these weird droids. I don't really know what these are, and I don't think they're meant to focus on anything in Star Wars specifically. They're just more of a custom level object. Still quite interesting though, and then eventually it gets to the fight, which works as I've just explained. Overall, pretty cool fight, however I feel like Slave One could have been utilized slightly better. Coming in at number 6, we have Count Dooku, from Episode 2, Chapter 6, Count Dooku. This is the first Count Dooku boss fight in the game, and it's actually the first level on this list that we take a look at that is entirely themed around the boss fight. The entire level from start to finish is based around fighting Count Dooku. When you spawn in, you have to chase Dooku into the hangar. A load of Geonosians and droids will come out and start attacking you, which you'll need to defeat before entering a small room with a puzzle. This is a fairly easy puzzle, just involving some parkour jumping on switches, to then pull down some levers to open the main door into the Count Dooku boss fight arena. As always, the lightsaber combat is the same as every other lightsaber fight. Jedi Slam attack is obviously the best move, and Count Dooku will try and block, and he'll walk away sometimes, and then attack you, and then block again. Much like the fight we looked at before, on the Invisible Hand, he'll also use his lightning, which is the exact same mechanic as the Invisible Hand, where you need to switch the player to then attack him in the back. What's different about this one though, is that occasionally he'll retreat into the back of the hangar, have a kind of force field-like thing around him, which is more of just a gameplay indicator to the player that you're not really supposed to get near him, as he'll then start to throw objects at you using the force, which you need to force back him to damage him. You'll then get to the midpoint in the fight, where Anakin and Obi-Wan will be defeated. Anakin will get his hand cut off like you see in the film, and then Yoda will come in. Obi-Wan will suddenly get back up, which you could argue isn't canonically accurate, however, once again gameplay, you need two characters, so Obi-Wan makes sense. You can actually go and see Anakin with his hand cut off, sitting in the corner, which is quite cool. Nice little detail. Anyway, this is where Dooku will actually start using his lightning. He'll got the same shield mechanic where you can't go near him, and then he'll electrocute player 1. It's basically the same mechanic as the fight we looked at earlier, just with a shield for some reason, meaning you can't get near him. Overall though, pretty good level. It's nice you get to play as Yoda and Anakin and Obi-Wan, you get to play as all of them. And like I said, the small detail of seeing Anakin with his hand cut off, it's quite cool. In at number 5, we have Darth Vader from Episode 5, Chapter 5, Cloud City Trap. This level, just like the Count Dooku level we've just looked at, is entirely themed around the boss fight, and you'll notice that that's a fairly common theme with the levels we have left now. In total, you fight Darth Vader 4 individual times in this level, with a couple of traversal sections in between, just moving between the different fight stages. When you spawn in, you buy Luke's X-Wing, and you have to raise a bridge to get over to a turret to destroy a door to enter the carbon freezing chamber. This is what the first Vader boss fight is, and it involves using R2-D2 to activate the carbon freezing chamber jets to damage Vader, which will then make him cough a bit and jump around to a place where you can actually attack him. Now, a common theme for this level is using your surroundings to get Darth Vader to a point where you can actually attack him, either by making him jump down to something, jump down to where you are, or moving something out of the way to actually be able to attack him with your lightsaber. Once you've beaten Vader in the carbon freezing chamber, he will run away through a door that you have to use a stormtrooper helmet to get to. This involves using R2 to activate another bridge to jump across through the door to open it once you're wearing a stormtrooper helmet. Then you've got a short walk outside before entering the second Darth Vader boss fight stage. This one once again uses jets of steam to damage him, to make him jump down off of a platform to attack you. This section involves using the Force to build a ramp for R2 to get up to a panel, and then building a winder, which is the grain of everything you push around, to allow R2 to get to another panel to activate the jets of steam. Now I'd say this room is probably the least interesting of the rooms, because the carbon freezing chamber is an iconic location, and the fight is pretty good. However, this room is simply just alternating between two different panels for R2 to use. Anyway, once you finish that room, you go into the large room with the massive viewport. You have to once again use R2 to fly across a gap to activate some panels to kill some stormtroopers that are guarding Vader. Once Vader's guards have been defeated, he will use the Force to throw objects at you, which you will then need to use the Force yourself to throw them back at Vader. Once they hit Vader, he will jump across to where you are, and you can damage him. Once you've taken down all of his hearts, he will jump through the massive viewport. Once you've taken down all of his hearts, he will break the massive viewport and jump through it to the final part of the level. This final part takes place outside, and is a mixture of parkour and lightsaber fighting. You've got a bit of platforming to do involving Luke and R2, and activating some panels as R2 to allow Luke to jump across to areas that he can't normally jump over to. And then finally, you get to the weather vane, which is the thing that Luke clings onto at the end of the fight. And you have to fight Vader a bit more before ending the level and getting the cutscene, where Vader pulls out the photo of Padme and Anakin to show that he is in fact Luke's father. Overall, a really good level. I like the fact that the boss fight runs through the entire thing, with a bit of parkour in the middle, because LEGO game parkour is always fun. In at number 4, we have General Grievous. Now you have to fight General Grievous in episode 3, chapter 3, General Grievous. So once again, it's another level themed entirely around the boss fight. Now you spawn in as Obi-Wan and Commander Cody on this massive circular platform, and after playing an in-game cutscene, Grievous will jump down to you. Now this platform acts as the kind of central point for the fight. Essentially what will happen is you will damage Grievous for a bit. He will then jump away to somewhere else with some explosive barrels next to him. You will then need to switch to Cody and shoot the barrels, which will cause him to jump back into the massive platform and start fighting you again. And this is basically the main fight pattern. You'll do some more damage, he'll then jump somewhere slightly higher up. You'll need to give chase to him. Now most of this section involves using the Force as Obi-Wan to build things to allow Cody to follow you and keep shooting up the barrels next to Grievous. Once you've shot the second set, just like before, Grievous will jump back into the middle, and you have to do some more damage to him using a lightsaber. For the final time, Grievous will run away, up to some even higher ground, and you actually have to use the Force to force one of the explosive barrels over to him, and then shoot it as Cody, which will mean Grievous goes back to the central platform for the last time, allowing you to end the fight and end the level. It's a fairly simple boss fight, however I think Grievous is animated really well in this game. Some of his animations compared to the other characters are quite crazy and intense, because he's got 4 arms, 4 lightsabers, he spins around a lot. The actual level itself is quite cool. It's a fairly small area, however it's got some nice details, especially the red brick which is in the room where Palpatine and Grievous talk in episode 3. You can actually get up there, go along the bridge that Grievous jumps off of at the start, and into the room. And you've got a whole puzzle section there to solve to get the red brick. Overall, just a nice boss fight. It's quite short, but I enjoy it. Coming in at number 3, we have Darth Maul, from episode 1 chapter 6, Darth Maul. Darth Maul is once again a level that's predominantly a boss fight. Now when you spawn in, there's a chasm opposite you, with Darth Maul on the other side of it, alongside loads of droids. You have to deflect the shots back at the droids, before Darth Maul will jump around and start throwing objects at you using the Force. You will then need to use the Force to deflect them back at Darth Maul, damaging him. More droids will appear. You do the same thing, deflect the shots back at them. Force objects back at Darth Maul for a couple of times, and then Darth Maul will run away, and you'll have to use the Force to build a bridge. Now this is slightly canonically inaccurate and doesn't happen in the film, however it's pretty cool for a gameplay point of view, because you've got the massive chasm in front of you, and you can see the rest of the hangar behind you. Once Maul has run away, you can either choose to look around the hangar, while there are mostly things that you need to be in free play to do, or you can give chase to Maul, which will lead you into the level's second room. This level is mainly parkour orientated, and there are a couple of different times that you have to use the Force to hold panels out for the second player to jump across. You will then use the Force to hold the same panel so you can jump across to where they are. Once you finish this room, you'll get to the massive plasma refinery, with the beams coming down from the ceiling. Now this room is pretty cool, and it's very big. The whole idea here is that there are 2 commander droids at each end of the room, and they will constantly keep on spawning regular B1 battle droids down. Now the droids drop down in crates and will basically just kind of converge and attack you at the same time, which can get quite chaotic. Once you've taken out the commanders, the B1 droids will stop spawning, and 2 platforms will rise up. Each platform will have a button and a droideka on it. You take out each droideka, and then stand on the buttons at the same time, and then you'll be able to give chase to Maul in the final section of the level, which is the long corridor with the red shields. Now in the film, this is the bit that separates Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. However, this is a LEGO game, and there needs to be 2 characters. However, once all of these shields have been disabled, you will open up into the room with the massive hole. This is the final area of the level, and is the main fight with Darth Maul. The first bit of the fight involves typical lightsaber combat, however after a while, Maul will build some platforms using the Force and jump on top of them. He'll then use the Force again to throw objects at you, which you simply need to deflect back at him using the Force yourself. He'll do this a few times before returning to the floor to fight you again, before you kill him to end the level. Overall, pretty good boss fight. I like it from start to finish, and obviously you've got Jewel of the Fates playing in the background, which is a very good soundtrack. Most of the rooms in the level are quite large. You've got the hangar at the start and the plasma refinery, which are, quite big rooms. So yeah, overall, good boss fight. I like it. Coming in at number 2, we have Anakin Skywalker from episode 3 chapter 6, Darth Vader. Now this boss, in terms of actual combat, is fairly standard lightsaber combat. You're on the high ground, and the high ground will slowly over time disappear and sink into the lava, which adds a bit more tension to the fight. However, the interesting part of the fight is the game mechanics around it, because you can have Anakin as the boss. However, if you're in the story mode and you switch to Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan then becomes the boss. so technically you've got two different characters, and based on who you actually defeat, you've got a different cutscene at the end. Additionally, if you're playing in 2-player mode, the second player becomes the boss, which I think is a really cool concept. Adds a bit of PvP into LEGO Star Wars if you're playing with a friend. As for the actual level, it builds up to the fight at the end. You start off having to do some parkour with the floor sinking into lava. You then make your way into the control room where Anakin kills all of these separatist leaders. There's a timer and you have to open the door by moving pillars out of the way using the force before the timer expires. Otherwise the building will explode and collapse and you will die restarting the section. Then you've got a small force puzzle outside before continuing on with some jumps. You've got some single jumps and then you've got some double jumps over lava before getting to the actual final fight. The reason this fight is number 2 though is simply because of the mechanics and the fact that you can either have Anakin or Obi-Wan or the second player as the boss. So you've kind of got a couple of different choices with who you want to fight. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the Emperor from episode 6, chapter 5, Jedi Destiny. Now I remember as a child loading up this level before I had to go to sleep and being in shock by the sheer amount of health that Palpatine has, because no other character in the game has 2 rows of hearts. The sad part about that though was that I had to wait until the next day to play because I had to go to sleep and then go to school and then get home from school and then figure out how to beat Palpatine and then actually go ahead and do that. Anyway, the overall fight is split up into multiple different sections. You've got some lightsaber dueling, you've got some force lightning parkour, I guess you'd call it, and the entirety of the levels used are in the Death Star throne room. You're in the throne room of the Death Star 2, and the entire area of the level is used. You also play as Luke and Vader, and you get given Vader after finishing the level, which is quite cool. Anyway, the fight starts off in front of the throne, and Palpatine will just use some basic lightsaber combat. Once you've gotten his hearts down a bit, he will run away, and you will then have to play as Vader using the dark side of the Force to build a fan to get up to where Palpatine is. Palpatine will then electrocute the floor, and you have to time your movements carefully so you don't get electrocuted yourself to get over to him and damage him some more. He will then stop targeting the floor and target you instead. Now this works exactly the same way as Count Dooku, where you need to switch to player 2 to damage Palpatine in order for him to release player 1. He will then start running away again, and some Imperial Guards will come out just to kind of distract you, which, pretty cool seeing the Imperial Guards. Interesting enemies, I'd say. Once you've caught up to Palpatine, you then need to do a bit more lightsaber fighting, where in order to follow him, you will need to build a lift and then use the Force to make the lift go upwards to where he is. He will then jump over something again, and you'll have to use Vader or Luke to double jump over to where he is, do some more damage. He'll then jump down to the floor for the final time, which will do even more damage to him, and then end the level. And then you get the cutscene where Vader throws Palpatine down into the shaft, and then Vader dies, very sadly. Once again, said this before, but the cutscene is incredibly emotional, given that there's no actual physical dialogue spoken, it's just body movement and facial actions. Which, you know, given that they're LEGO figures, and I think TT do a good job of mixing in humour and emotion, because when Luke walks away, Vader kind of slides down into the Imperial shuttle. So yeah, that is, in my opinion, the best boss fight in the game. And finally, our final ranking is all 6 of the Minikit bonuses. Coming in at number 6, we have the Death Star. Now this is episode 4's Minikit bonus, and in my opinion it is incredibly boring. It's set in the Death Star trenches, which makes sense. However, it's all grey, and there isn't really a whole lot going on. You haven't really got too many things to destroy. You've got a couple of satellite dishes and wall details, as well as the torpedo targets. But other than that, there isn't really a whole lot going on here. You've also got these chasms that if you're not careful, you can end up flying into, which are really irritating. They're very annoying, because if you fly into them, you'll die. And even if you fly over them, it will start pulling your ship downwards, which just kind of gets annoying. There's a small section of space in each of the middle of them you can fly over normally, but it's just kind of annoying having to accurately aim for that. Overall, just a fairly boring level with not much going on. The main enemies of the level are TIE fighters, and they just fly around and shoot you, so even the enemies aren't very interesting. In at number 5, we have Hoth. Now Hoth has a really interesting layout, because there's a massive mountain in the middle, and you simply circle around it. Now this level has TIE fighters and AT-ATs on the floor as the main enemies of the level. The way you get stats is by destroying trees, and also by destroying the torpedo targets. You've also got these deflective walls that are similar to the ones used in episode 5 chapter 1, Hoth Battle. The other thing that you might notice as the video plays is that there are the bombs that you have to throw around. Now I was so happy when I realised that these weren't actually part of the level at all. I'm honestly not even sure why the bomb dispenser is even there, because it's incredibly oversized compared to the normal ones. And also, like I said, you don't even use it, which honestly is a good thing, because the towing mechanic is horrible in this game. so I'm just very happy we don't have to use it. The reason Hoth is placed at number 5 though, is just because it's kind of boring, because all you do is go around in a circle and shoot trees. There isn't really a whole lot going on, you can't really move anywhere. So it's mainly just going right to left, which isn't really too interesting. Coming at number 4, we have Endor. Now Endor is an incredibly long level. You've got a fair amount of room to go left and right. And it's set down on the first floor, which is quite cool. Obviously, as always, you've got TIE fighters, and you've also got ATSTs around. The ATSTs are quite cool because they're miniature-sized builds. Now to get to the torpedo generator, you have to fly all the way to the right. And it actually took me quite hard to figure this out, because honestly I couldn't really see all that well. The level's quite dark. But once you've got the torpedoes, it's the same as always. Just destroy the torpedo targets, and you'll get a power up. I just think that of the original trilogy levels, Endor was the most interesting, because it's not boring and grey, and it doesn't make you go around in circles, which gives you a lot more room in terms of where you want to go, and where you want to move, which is just a lot more interesting to me than only being able to go in 2 directions. In at number 3, we have Tatooine. This is episode 1's Minikit bonus, and honestly, it's quite a cool location considering it's just Tatooine. You're in the canyons. Now for whatever reason TIE fighters are still the main enemy of the level, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense considering it's an episode 1 level, but I mean, we can go over it, fine, sure. Tatooine is a level, it's quite expansive, you've got a couple of different routes you can take, and they all kind of intertwine and intersect each other. Getting studs here is also really satisfying, because there are loads of studs clumped together, so you get to see them all flow up to the stud counter at the top. Additionally, they're also all blue studs, so you get the noise that goes along with blue studs as well, which is quite cool. Overall, just an interesting level, a bit of variation with the pathways, and honestly quite interesting given it's just Tatooine. In at number 2, we have Coruscant. Well, this is episode 2's Minikit bonus, and I think this is a really unique idea for a level. Obviously in episode 2, we see Coruscant quite a lot. It's featured heavily at the start, and also you've got quite a few political scenes throughout the film in it, and once again at the end you see all the clones lined up, ready to fly off into battle. Now like all of the other bonus levels, for some reason there are TIE fighters, again, not really sure why, but it's fine, we can move past that. You can see all of the neon lights of all the buildings, and you can see all of the different ships flying past in the background, which is quite cool. Quite a few of them are made out of Lego. Additionally, you've got all of the floating billboard signs, which is quite cool. You've got the floating billboards, which is quite cool, and just some other various signs. It took me quite a while to find the torpedo generator in this level for some reason. It was really far away, and not exactly where I thought it would be, which made the level take a bit longer than it perhaps should have. You've got quite a few different level elements from episode 2, chapter 1, I'd tend to proceed there as well, which I mean makes sense given that there's a vehicle level in Coruscant. Overall, just a really unique setting, and a cool location in the Star Wars in general. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Kashyyyk. Now I really like Kashyyyk as a location. You're on the beach, and you've got the water which you can fly over, which is quite cool. Once again, for whatever reason, you have original trilogy vehicles, you've got an ATST, and TIE fighters. They're kinda cool, just slightly inaccurate. Kashyyyk is also a really quick level, because you spawn right next to the torpedo generator, so you don't have to go around looking for that, you're right next to it. So you can instantly load in, destroy all of the torpedo targets, get the power-ups and whatever studs come out of those, and then the rest of it's easy. Because I haven't mentioned yet, but the power-ups also give you tractor beam, so it pulls in nearby TIE fighters towards you, making shooting really easy. Overall just a nice level, it's quite quick as well, and quite interesting to kind of speedrun. And there we have it. Ending right where we started, on the LEGO Star Wars Complete Saga title screen. Thank you all so much for watching. This video is a culmination of the last 8 months or so of ranking videos on my channel. The support recently has been absolutely insane. This has been the best my channel has ever done on YouTube, and the quickest it's ever grown, and that is all down to you watching, so thank you all so much for that. I would imagine this video will be my longest video ever. I can't really see anything else beating this, at least anytime soon. Maybe if we ever end up doing something similar for LEGO Star Wars through the Clone Wars, that might come close, because that game is also fairly lengthy. Well, I'm not sure, we'll see. Either way, the video on screen now is a video taking a look at the pod racing level, and seeing what makes it so iconic. So if you're interested, you can go give that a watch now. But other than that, yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you all later.